I've always had a soft spot for Beijing. Growing up in Hong Kong, Beijing embodies a kind of cultural aura that Hong Kong didn't have. Maybe it's the idea of some sort of old world ethnic solidarity. Although Beijing is just a living city, just like any other. In my mind, it has always been a monolith, a stereotype, a Disneyland of sorts for the Chinese story, similar to what Washington, D.C. is for Americans, I suppose. So perhaps it's not fair for me to judge it and treat it purely as a tourist destination. But stay with me, and I'll tell you if Beijing as a destination is worth the 5 stars on this flag. There's something special about old cities. Rome or London or Paris or Moscow or Kyoto. There really aren't that many cities, big cities, especially outside Europe, that had survived this long. Beijing is one of these cities. Beijing is a city with an old soul. And I don't know why, but I feel like older cities also tend to have more old people living in them. Maybe it's the effect of some sort of conservation policy that discourages the owners from selling their land to developers, and so with their children moving to newer areas, the older generation is left as guardians for the family houses. This is just a complete blind guess from me. The old people of Beijing, they're something else, though. They are the most active old people I've seen anywhere. And I'm not talking about rich old widows who have just discovered hiking or yoga and stuff. I'm talking about ordinary old people who are somehow super into just being outside. Hacky sacks are super popular. Writing calligraphy with water is another pastime. Whatever this toy is called. There were also people doing ribbon dances, sword dances, umbrella dances. Basically all kinds of synchronized dances, including dances of the more modern variety. Everywhere in Beijing, old people seem to really enjoy themselves. The city didn't change too much since I last visited in 2014. The new 5G infrastructure is impressive, although all the naughty websites are blocked. But I can manage without them for a few days. Everything is maybe a little bit cleaner. The weather was nice when I was there, and it was very nice just walking around the Shichahai area, although not much was open in the morning when I was there, because it's kind of a nightlife area, which is kind of a waste, I think, for the beautiful scenery there. There was always someone cleaning something everywhere I looked. And although everything felt ancient, a lot of it felt new at the same time. You can see this kind of juxtapositions everywhere. Because of how fast China's economy has been growing, there was a rush to modernize, at least at first, before everyone took a deep breath and realized that we should be preserving some of this as well. Now that I think about it, I think the reason why I have a soft spot for Beijing is because my parents' house in their hometown was something that got bulldozed for change. So, although their hometown is nothing like Beijing, because it's a small mid-sized city in the south. The hutongs of Beijing still scratch a certain spot for me, because it's the closest thing to how I remembered my childhood vacations. For a city of 20 million people, it was unbelievable how dark and quiet the hutongs are. How they managed to preserve the look and feel and sound and even the faint shit smells that permeated the air because of the lack of modern plumbing in these ancient neighborhoods. It may be poor taste for me to romanticize this, but considering how expensive these historic houses are, I can't imagine that this lack of modern amenities is the result of poverty, instead of a deliberate choice to keep everything the way they are. That is not to say Beijing doesn't have any bad modernization attempts. In fact, it's full of them. During my stay, I had to walk by the Olympic Park on my way to the conference center. The main plaza was wider and longer than a runway for commercial airplanes. In fact, everything outside the historic district felt hostile to pedestrians. And many parts of the city felt like it was something designed by a starchitect on a map rather than someone who lived on the ground level. The newest airport is another example. It took me about 75 minutes to get from the drop-off point to the actual gate. And when I got there, after 6 security checkpoints and more than half a mile of walking down this empty concourse, there was only a single bathroom with 2 stalls. Is the grandeur of the airport supposed to help me not want to use the bathroom after eating at the only restaurant that was open in the entire terminal? It was a naked display of how more money and tech don't necessarily make things better for everyone. But that's kind of the MO of Beijing through its history, to emphasize an appearance of grandness over all else. It is a city of monuments, just like Washington, D.C. It's a city marketed as a family vacation destination to learn about the story of your country, but at the same time offering perhaps the most exhausting experience for a family with young children. There were many times where I felt lost, that I was on some sort of personal odyssey to get to know the city, but was only able to see other tourists in the theme park version of Beijing. Every once in a while, I would walk into some kind of ritual that I don't fully understand, and there seems to be an uncrossable gap between the city where people lived and where the tourists played. But maybe the theme parky part of the city is the part where the locals also hang out, and what I consider to be the more real and charming parts of Beijing are actually the ones that are only quote-unquote authentic to me because I was looking at it through the lens of a tourist. Maybe it is problematic for me to see the old people of Beijing as its mascots. They, like the city, aren't a monolith or a tourist attraction, despite what the brochures say. And some of them perhaps do a better job at describing the struggles of a modern-day mega city than any combinations of words I can come up with. My name is Yao Yuan. Thank you for watching.
样子